Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Rustabout Collector here, and today we are taking a look at the all-new Spartan Collection Series 7 Frederic 104 from Jazwares. It has been quite some time since we've seen new Halo figures on the shelves, and so finding these Series 7 figures in the store this year has been a really welcome treat. This has probably been my most anticipated Spartan Collection figure for a very long time, and before we get into the figure, let's really quick take a look at the box. Now this is the same packaging we saw introduced with Series 6. It has this blue and gray coloring with this interesting pattern on the backdrop there. Around back we see the other figures from this new wave. We have Master Chief from Halo 3, we have Alice 130 from Halo Wars, and we have the Spartan Yokai, which I've heard rumors that this has been delayed, possibly canceled. Those are just rumors and we don't have an official answer on that just yet, but I have not seen anyone finding these in stores. So I just wanted to put that out there that the Spartan Yokai is not in stores quite yet, but hopefully soon because I really dig that color deco. However, these two can be found in stores and have been reported across the United States. And of course, Spartan Fred is one that is definitely showing up in stores because even I was able to find it way out in Ohio. Now these are retailing for $21.99 a piece. If you're a pro member, $20.89 a piece. I am a pro member, so I also use my $5 monthly credit to get a little bit more off that price. But even at that $21.99 price point, I feel like you're getting a pretty good price here. If you want to call your local stores and see if they have these, I recommend using that 6-digit SKU number there, 335537, or you could also try 335533. Those should give you the right figures and they can tell you, hey, we have some in stock or we have some in shipment to our stores. Now let's take a look at the figure itself, and boy oh boy do I love this figure. The original World of Halo release for Spartan Fred was really awesome, and I fell in love with this color of blue and this design on the newer Halo Infinite Spartan body style. So when I saw it was coming out in the Spartan collection as well, I knew I could not resist picking this figure up. Now of course this figure does have a lot of parts reusage from Master Chief just because it is the same body style and armor style. However, there are some nice unique parts for this figure, like his shoulder pads, his helmet, and of course his DMR. Like the other Spartan Collection figures we've seen before, he has this beautiful chromed out visor like the old Joyride figures from the Halo 2 days, and he has a really nice dry brushing going on all over the armor, which just makes him look weathered and battle damaged and worn. And it also serves to highlight the sculpt work going on here with this figure, all in all making a really nice effect for these Spartans. And with these new sculpted shoulder pads, we have these cool combat knives that are integrated into the armor. The one downside is though that those are not removable. That is just one solid sculpt with some nice paint apps. Unfortunately though, those aren't removable, and I think that would be a really cool feature, but I kind of understand it because if they had gone the removable knife route, there's a good chance these shoulder pads would be oversized just to accommodate, you know, a larger piece of plastic for the blade, because you have to have certain tolerances for that so it doesn't break. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. Maybe there is a way to integrate it and still meet like quality control. But even though they are sculpted in, I still really dig this look. I just think the dual combat knives on the shoulder pads is so awesome and kind of over the top. Like it's so unnecessary to have two combat knives like this. But you know what? Fred's just built different. That's why I love him. He's a blue Spartan with combat knives integrated into the shoulder pads, and that's just so awesome. Now for accessories with this figure, he comes with this DMR, which is the Halo Infinite redesign. It is cast in a softer plastic, but it feels more rigid than past releases, so I'm very pleased to see that improvement. It doesn't feel like it's going to warp out of shape or anything like that. Of course, it does have the standard hole in the back there, allowing it to be attached to the back of the Spartan figures for storage. He also comes equipped with the Sidekick. This is the more updated version that comes with the Spartan 2-pack from Target. It's a little bit smaller than the original, and it's a little bit more game accurate as well. It also has that little peg system, allowing it to be placed here on the leg, and of course when there is no weapon being stored there, those little pegs can be popped out, turned around, and it becomes once again a seamless piece of armor, which I love this design. It's been pretty reliable. I have not had an issue with these falling out terribly often. And again, it's not perfectly seamless, but it does help blend all of that armor back together when you don't want to have that peg sticking out. And when you do have it sticking out, it can be covered by the weapons. Now before we move on to the hands, I do just want to point out one of my gripes with this figure early on, and that is the scaling of this DMR. Unfortunately, because of the arm articulation and the scale of this DMR, you really can't get him to shoulder it very well. That stock extends too far into his shoulder to let him really curl around it, meaning that it's very difficult to get him into a position where two hands can actually hold it when it's on the shoulder. Now, it is a little bit easier if you want to have him more at ease with the rifle like this, in a more casual pose, less of a combat stance. He can hold that all right with two hands, but again, if you want to shoulder it and have him looking down the sights, it's very difficult with the scale of that stock. Now, I imagine the scaling might be just pulled directly from the game, and that's why it doesn't necessarily translate into plastic perfectly, but if they had just scaled that down a little bit or just shaved a little bit off of that and kind of squished it in a little bit more, I think it would have been much more playable with this figure. Moving on though from that to his hand accessories, he does come with quite a few of them, as we've kind of come to be familiar with the Spartan collection figures. He has the pointy trigger finger hand for his right hand, as well as his left hand. There's more of an open palm left hand, as well as an open palmed right hand. Then there are the left and right loose gripping hands here. I think these are what he comes with like standard in the box. And a right-handed fist, though I do wish that he came with two of these just because I feel like this is a very useful hand for different poses and stuff, especially with toy photography. So those are all the accessories for this figure. I'm really glad he comes as decked out as he does. The Spartan collection does an excellent job of including a lot of accessories, 2 weapons, a bunch of hands, and of course those are really easily swapped out with just that simple peg system. I really appreciate that, and I think that just adds so much value to this $21, $22 figure. There are plenty of other figures on the market in that price point right now that don't come with really any extra accessories, and to get 8 hands as well as 2 weapons is really awesome in 2022. Now, I will say, as in all of my Halo reviews, I still have the gripe that these right hand weapon holding hands are not up and down hinge. Instead, they are just in and out hinge. I've been saying since the very beginning, I really like my up and down hinge on the right arm. I think it's much more practical for weapon holding because then they can kind of tilt the weapon in a lot of different unique ways. I think that the left hand, where it's typically a gripping hand, is perfectly fine as an in and out, but I will always say with a figure line that a up and down hinge on the right wrist just makes so much more sense. So I will always kind of dock points in my review for the Halo figures on that. It's a very minor gripe, and maybe it's more of a personal gripe, but yeah, I just wish that these hands were up and down on the right wrist. Now, even though there is a fair amount of reuse with this figure, we do have to go over articulation, because they have been redesigning these figures every now and then. It seems like each wave kind of gets some little tweak or change made to it, so we got to go over it yet again. Up at the top, hinge and swivel up and down. Very good range on this head joint. You can go all the way up, all the way forward, left and right swivel, of course. At the shoulders, hinge and swivel all the way around. Not much in way of outwards from the body, but still decent. The shoulder pads are of course really clunky, and so, you know, it's hard to make a bulky armored figure like this and still retain a lot of that articulation. But you do have a bicep swivel there. Of course, there are double jointed elbows that get you into 90. And then, like I said before, the hinge and swivel wrists, all of them are in and out. All the hands are the same in that regard. There is a ball joint at the torso, but it's pretty much useless. There's really no crunch forward, no crunch back, and barely any twisting side to side. That is one joint I would love to see improved upon, just so that we could get a little bit more dynamic posing out of this figure. But moving on to the hips, we have a ball joint and thigh swivel system, so you can hinge it forward to there, we can hinge it back to there, outwards to there, and he can almost do the perfect splits. He can very nearly be a kickboxing Spartan. Moving on down to the ever controversial knee joint on these Spartan collection figures, they have made vast improvements to this knee joint. This is a really nice bend, especially for how bulky this armor is. It feels really, really good, like it has a good ratchet to it. It doesn't have that side-to-side bendiness that we were seeing with like Series 3, I think. So this is a really nice improvement on that design for the knee. I'm really happy to see that they have taken the feedback of the fans and actually applied it to the figures and improved them. That is so awesome to see. Then moving down to the feet, you have the hinge and forward-facing rocker, so you can hinge them forward and back to there, side-to-side rocket, and of course we have the little toe joint that adds that little point of articulation there. So overall, there's a lot we've already seen here, just because, again, this is a Master Chief repaint in a lot of ways. However, those new knees are really nice to see on this figure. I'm so glad that they've redesigned those. I hope that they can just stick to that formula. Whatever that formula was, just keep it going for all the future waves. I think it's working really well for these Spartan figures. One thing that I have noticed with these bulkier armored figures, though, is that that bicep swivel really doesn't allow any inward motion on these arms. You can get them into 90 on that double jointed elbow, but once you have it pivoted to here, there's really not much you can do as far as, moving that elbow joint inward. And that would be really nice to have a little bit more mobility there for weapon holding. So while I know it would require a lot of retooling, I would love to see these elbows converted into a single jointed elbow. We're not getting more than 90 degrees on this double jointed elbow as it is anyways. So to bring in the miniature Fred here from the World of Halo line, I think a single jointed elbow like they've done here would be really instrumental in allowing this figure to have more mobility when holding weapons, because on this figure you can get about the same elbow crunch. It's maybe just under 90 degrees there, but when the arm is here forward facing, you can actually just pivot it right there at the elbow, and that makes for such a smooth transition to holding a weapon. And even at this smaller 4-inch scale, he can hold that really nicely, and you can even get him looking down the line of sights, which is something that some of these bulkier Spartan collection figures struggle to do. So while I do love the improved weathering and sculpt detail that is going on with these larger Spartan collection figures, I do wish that we could get a redesign on these elbows, just because whenever you're dealing with these larger, bulkier characters that are much more heavily armored, it's going to limit the articulation, so anything you can do to actually make it more functional is always a nice thing to see. Now, while I do have my gripes with this figure, like I said, the arm articulation, the oversized DMR, and the hand articulation, I still think that this figure is a really, really solid, shining example of what the Spartan collection figure line can be. Of course, I might be a little bit biased because Fred is one of my favorite Spartan characters to come out of the Halo universe. I think his armor design is so cool in this new Halo Infinite style. I wasn't as much of a fan of his Halo 5 design, but this here is absolutely stunning, and I think they've captured that really well. One thing Jazwares excels at with their Spartan collection figures is just the amount of detail they pack in with the paint apps, including all these little individual dots and marks here, as well as just the overall sculpting, and of course the dry brushing over the armor just really makes all of that stand out so nicely. What's also cool is that with the release of Fred here, we have now completed 2 different Spartan teams in the Spartan collection from Jazwares. First we had Noble Team from Halo Reach, and now with Fred we complete Blue Team from Halo 5, the novels, and of course kind of technically Halo Infinite. I believe that these were supposed to be featured in that game, but of course they were canceled and cut from it or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how all of these come into play with their Halo Infinite armor, but either way, I love to see it. I love this more classic style of armor they introduced with Halo Infinite, and seeing Blue Team in a more simplified armor style, but still sporting their classic weapons and their classic colors is just so rewarding. In fact, just in time for this video review, I was able to pick up Kelly and Linda. Those two have been floating around peg warming and going on clearance for a while now, but once Fred started hitting stores, they basically disappeared from the internet. They were off of GameStop's website, so I think people realized pretty quickly that they were going to need these 2 figures to complete their Blue Team once Fred came out, and yeah, they were gone pretty quickly. So if you have the chance to get your hands on Kelly and Linda at a decent price, I'd say anything from retail under, I would definitely do it now, because I think they're only going to go up in price once Fred becomes a little bit more common in stores and people realize that, hey, he's a pretty awesome figure and there's actually other team members to complete Blue Team. So that is where I'm going to wrap up this quick review of the new Spartan Collection Fred figure. Again, I have some minor gripes with it, but overall I am really loving the sculpt work, the paint apps, everything going on with this figure, except for maybe the weapon that they included, and the articulation problems I have are kind of across the board with Spartan Collection figures, so it's not exclusive to Fred, it's just a problem that I would like to see fixed with all figures in general. But anyways, if you like this video, please consider leaving a like down below. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. If you want to follow me over on Instagram, click the link in the description and that will take you right there. I post toy photography and other toy related content, including when things like this go up for pre-order, I try and post them. This guy has not gone up on the GameStop website yet, but he should soon, and so when that goes live, I'll post that over there. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, have a wonderful evening, noon, or night, depending on when you are watching this video, of course, and as always, I'll be sure to catch you all in the next video.